Week 11 versus the Broncos may be a preview of what's in store for the Falcons come playoff time.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, where you can start the season with a big return. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman. Been covering the Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at FalcFans.com, RIP. Still going strong in this illustrious podcast, and I thank each and every one of you that goes strong with me as everydayers. That means you make this podcast your first listen each and every day. And all you got to do to become an everydayer is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So as we do so much here on this illustrious podcast, we wrap up the week with none other than Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And today we'll be talking all about this Week 11 matchup between the Falcons and Broncos, an important matchup that I think is going to tell us a lot about this Falcons team. We'll talk about, me and Jarvis, we're going to talk trenches in this game, but maybe we'll talk a little bit about the secondary and Justin Simmons making his triumphant return to Denver in this Sunday. But Jarvis, to me, this game basically is really going to boil down something that you've talked a number of times on this podcast over the last couple of weeks. Right? We know that this team is going to be carried by their offense. If this team is going to be successful, it's really going to boil down to the offense. Not to sit here and say the defense has nothing to do with their success, but we know that the bulk of the heavy lifting is done by the Falcons offense. And this week they'll be facing a Broncos defense that has been one of the best in the league throughout the season. And it kind of, to me, is going to be a really big indication because you have this matchup after the bye. You have the Chargers. Their defense has been playing really well. Obviously, Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings the week after that. All of these teams are sort of playoff contenders at this point in time. The season ended tomorrow. They would all be in the playoffs. And by and large, they've, been put in that position because of how well their defenses have played this season. So to me, this is going to be a really big measuring stick to see the Falcons go up against a playoff caliber defense. And hopefully, when we get to January and the Falcons are, playing playoff games, like we'll look back at, these matchups against the Broncos and other teams as sort of what we expect from this team. So is it fair to kind of put this sort of playoff implications on this game? And do you feel like this Falcons offense is a good match against this Broncos defense?
I think it's a perfect way to kind of look at this game, because when you go back to the beginning of the season when we were ramping up for this Pittsburgh Steelers, we went up and down that defensive line, outside linebacker, everybody was like, man, this is going to be a tough one. And if the Falcons figure out a way to get this game, like, you can take this team serious, because we knew that Pittsburgh Steelers defense was going to be one of the best in the league, and the Broncos are right there with them. I know, you look at the team and nobody likes Sean Payton, but oh my gosh, he hired the right defense coordinator. That's for doggone sure. Vance Joseph is a defensive guy. Like, he's the guy that, people look to when they want to get better on defense. Like, they're looking for a defense coordinator to get their defense better. Vance Joseph is your guy. So I think that if this game, if they figure out a way to get to, I know 20, I say 20, they averaging 27 points on the road. They just came off a 17-point loss. 17 points in a loss against the Saints. And I think that's not going to be enough for me. I don't think that's going to be enough. And if you could somehow figure out a way to get to 21, 24 points, I really feel like this Falcons, offense will be able to do something. And I think that if you're able to get that 21, 24 point mark, that should say a lot going into this bye week, because like you mentioned, this is a talented defense. I'm talking about Jonathan Cooper, Zach Bonito, you got Zach Allen, defensive lineman. Those guys, they move them around, and as far as twists and stunts up front, man, a lot of zone stuff. So, hey, it's a lot of imagery that, Vance Joseph try to put out there. Hey, this is what we're doing pre-snap, and then next thing you know, boom, it looks totally different once that ball is in the quarterback's hands. So I think that this is a game where Kirk has to go out there and set the tone, man. Like, be that veteran quarterback saying, I know you're not about to run this cover three. I know you're running too high. I know where you're going. And I think that, Patrick Surtain is a guy I need to be on the lookout for. Not too many people have been talking about him, but I was like, I want to see that matchup. He's going to follow Drake, more than likely. So I'm interested to see how they're able to combat their best corner, their best coverage guy with wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 5, however you want to look at it. So I think those are one of the things that I feel like this is going to be at one of those matchups, like you mentioned, that if they're somehow, some way able to figure out 21, 24 points. I know they might not seem like a lot, but this is a defense that's only giving up 17. Like, they are stingy. They for some strange way, they found a way to lose to the Kansas City Chiefs. Because they had that offense looking discombobulated all the way through. So I feel if they're somehow able to figure out how to do that, and get this point, if they're somehow able to get to that 21, 24 point mark, I feel like that'll be a good barometer to say, all right, this team is playoff ready.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you mentioned Patrick Surtain. I've talked about it a couple of times already this week on Locked On Falcons. I think, the expectation is that he'll shadow one of the Falcons' top receivers. But I honestly think if he shadows Drake London, I think that plays the Falcons' strength, because I like the Darnell Mooney matchup against Riley Moss a lot.
Absolutely.
Darnell Mooney is the Falcons' explosive playmaker. Not to say he's on the same level as this player, but he's kind of the Julio Jones in this offense, while Drake London's more of the Mohamed Sanu. And obviously, again, not saying that they're all of those guys are on the same level, right?
Absolutely.
But but like in terms of like what their role is, and so if I'm the Broncos defense, like I'm going to game plan against the Julio Jones, not the Mohamed Sanu. But even if that is the case, and you do put Patrick Surtain on Darnell Mooney, I think that's a favorable matchup for Drake London in this matchup.
Sure.
And I've seen a couple of bigger, wider receivers, beat Riley Moss at the catch point. And I think Riley Moss, and I talked with Sarah Bettinger of Locked On Broncos, he's been exposed a little bit just because he plays opposite Patrick Surtain, but I think he's handled it about as well as you could, playing against arguably the best cornerback in the NFL. And so for me, I think a big part of this game, you mentioned Kirk Cousins, you mentioned the blitz, do they get Drew Dahlman back? But I do feel like, again, my assumption, and we'll see how it plays out on Sunday, but my assumption is Patrick Surtain, whoever he covers, is going to take that guy out of the game. And it's going to be up to Zach Robinson and Kirk Cousins and whoever that other wide receiver is to kind of carry the Falcons offense, in addition to the run game and Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts and all that sort of stuff. So that to me is going to be what I'm very curious, because again, my assumption is like the Broncos, because of the presence of Surtain, are going to make the Falcons play left-handed. And so they're going to take away one of their top receivers. And can you pivot off of that and be able to produce, the amount of points that you're talking about, Jarvis, in order to win this game?
Free. That's the beauty of drafting a tight end at the number 4 overall pick, man. Like, or taking a running back in the top 10. Like, that's the beauty of this offense, right? Like, although I didn't necessarily agree with this whole full bore pass catchers for the last 3 or 4 years, you know what I'm saying, the first round. But man, this is why right here. This is great. Oh yeah, y'all want to, Pat gonna take out Drake London? All right, cool, that's fine. All right, Darnell, let's go. Let's continue to show, your value. Hey, you got a value contract, bro. like you are exceeding, the amount of money that you're paying. The way wide receivers get paid in this league, man. You're doing some good work out there. You're doing the yeoman's work out there on the football field. So I feel like this is one of those games where when you have a guy like Pat Surtain and you respect what he brings to the table from a coverage standpoint, then you kind of like, you have to pivot. Like you mentioned, you have to pivot, and it's okay to pivot because you have all these weapons to kind of lean on it, kind of game plan around, but I do believe that, the Falcons should continue to try to do what they do, from an identity standpoint, and continue establishing yourself in that light. But oh man, you got an amazing backup plan, and you can go with it, man. Because I really feel like this is a game that they should try to make sure they establish the run and use a little bit more play action. I know when they're under center, that's more than likely that's where they're going if they don't hand it off. But I feel like this is one of those games where you can have a Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson in mixing some motions in, to kind of get that linebacker core, that second level guys, kind of throwing them off and not letting no guys tee off on your tackles, because I feel I got that feeling in my stomach, Free. Got that feeling in my stomach, man. Jonathan Cooper and Benito, man. That's a heck of a doggone combination, dog. Like, those two guys have more sacks combined than the entire Falcons roster. So yeah, that they kind of concern me just a little bit.
Yeah, and so we'll talk about some of those concerns as we continue today's Locked On Falcons, talking about the Falcons offensive line holding up against this Broncos pass rush that has been one of the best in the NFL so far this year. And again, we'll break that down as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. And somewhere in between the store and your first month's bill, the price that you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. Now, with Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about those gotchas again, because when Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye to overpriced wireless plans, as Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switching is easy, so you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ditch the overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. New customers head to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Cut your wireless bill at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on a first 3-month plan only. Speed slower at above 40 gigabytes on a limited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Get ready to tackle the NFL action this year with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and do so much more all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And of course, that first $5 bet could be on the Atlanta Falcons covering down or being, 2.5-point underdogs against the Denver Broncos this weekend. So check it out at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So Jarvis Davis here of Locked On Sports Atlanta. We like to talk trenches on this podcast. We've already talked about how, the Falcons' plethora of weapons being able to score points, but it's hard for Kirk Cousins to complete throws if he's on his backside, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
It's hard to establish the run when your offensive line isn't getting any push and whatnot. And so despite all that talent, you still need those guys in the trenches to really step up. And so I'm curious, when you look at this matchup, in terms of the trenches, what are your concerns? What are some areas that you feel like, maybe the Falcons can take advantage of when it comes to their offensive line going up against this Broncos front?
It has to be on the edges. That's my number one concern. Being able to, looking at, what Bettino brings to the table, what Jonathan Cooper brings to the table. Those guys are relentless, man. They keep coming. Those are the guys you have to worry about, because a lot of times, like, you have all these guys who are real fancy out the edge. They're doing all these karate chops and dupe-de-doos and getting around tackles and all that stuff. But, man, those two, they're the type of guys that they have counters. Like, so if you stop that initial move, they're gonna go back and keep coming. And if your quarterback holds onto the football, and the one thing that I've seen with Kirk these past few games, when he's trying to make a play, when he's trying to push the ball down the field, he'll hold on to it just a little bit longer than normal and not feel that rush. And then next thing you know, boop, oh, come up, got the guy grab him with one hand and he coming over top with that arm and knocking that ball out, man. And that just can't happen. And I feel like this is definitely one of those games where if it's not there initially, that deep shot, man, get down, check down. Yeah, 7. I don't mind him having 8 catches for 80 yards, bro. Like, I'm totally fine with that. Rather that than hold on to that ball and then potentially having a turnover, man. And because you just can't afford to do that. Especially with what the Falcons are going to be dealing with on from a defensive perspective. So I feel like, man, my number one concern is definitely on the edges, and Kirk has to help his guys out by getting rid of football. If it's not there, if the check down's not there, man, throw it away. Like, it's okay, man. Get to the next play, because you don't want to put your guys in a position like that where they can't be successful. And holding on to the ball, with these guys coming off the edge, that smells trouble for me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. And you talk about the checkdowns. That's been a big part of when Kyle Pitts has been featured in this offense as sort of that check down guy. And as you mentioned a couple of shows ago, having that one catch against whoever it was, all the games blur together, but it set up that fourth. Yeah, the Cowboys. Yeah, there you go. That set up the 4th down touchdown to Darnell Mooney. And we've seen Bijan do this all season long, where he'll turn a 5-yard gain that any other running back will get 5 yards on, and he'll juke somebody in open field and turn that into a 20-yard gain. So I do feel like that is something that you're right. Like, ain't nothing wrong with checkdowns with some of the playmakers that the Falcons have at some of these skill positions. So I think that is a big part of their success, to allow their offense to stay ahead of the chains and not get into a situation where those pass rushers can pin their ears back. Is there anything else, Jarvis, that you're watching for in this game, whether it's trenches or other things related in this Week 11 matchup?
I'll be interested to see what Tyler Allgeier's role would be in this particular game. I mentioned a little bit, like mixing him in and having he and Bijan at the same time, because he hasn't had one of those games. What I'm talking about. One of those games, like hey, Bijan, come start the team off right, running the rock, and then 25 coming in and finish these guys off. I haven't seen somebody make a business decision in quite some time. That's what I would love to see. I would love to see them be able to establish the run to the point where they have Tyler Allgeier in that 3rd and 4th quarter, and you just see him just grinding it out. And Bijan just sitting over there drinking his little water. He's like, oh, okay, all right then, man. Yeah, go ahead and do your thing, Doc. And guys making those business decisions, they trying to, flinching up at the doggone. You've seen it before. You know what it is. So, I would love a scenario like that to play out on Sunday, because, man, I think there's something to a lot of people want to, criticize Raheem Morris as a head coach and games that just unexplainable. You talk about Seattle and New Orleans last week, but the one thing that's fact, and you can't argue against, they have not lost back-to-back games. So I feel like this is one of those games where you continue to prove that even though you have bad games, and every team in the league has bad games. Shoot, I can make an argument that Kansas City has had a bad game every game, and they undefeated. So but there's something that it says something to you as a coach and the staff that you have, and what you're able to do in implementing these guys throughout on a week-to-week basis, when you have one of those bad showings and you don't let it snowball. And we've seen snowballs a lot in the past few years with the previous regime. So I think that I feel like I'm looking forward to, Zach implementing Tyler, see if we can get that kind of concept, against one of the best defenses in the league. Man, you talking about riding the high going into the bye, man. That's exactly at Mile High. Man, shoot, that's Oh man, I did it. Pull a Jesse Jackson almost right there, man. Yeah. So, but that's it. Yeah.
Well, I don't know about Jarvis's Rainbow Coalition and whatnot, but we will talk a little bit about the Falcons defense and sort of what is more important in this matchup. Jarvis favors the front end when it comes to defensive play, but maybe this week he'll give a little love to the back end of the Falcons defense, and we'll break that down as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. Time is a precious commodity, and sometimes we all feel like we're wasting it scrolling mindlessly on your phones. And I often sit there and think, and it's like, I could be spending this time doing things much more beneficial to myself, ways to improve myself, improving my mind even. And thankfully, our sponsor, Hillsdale College, has an offer to help you improve your minds with more than 40 free. That's right, free online courses on history, politics, economics, philosophy, chemistry, mathematics, and so much more. All their courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever you want, wherever you want. Plus, you can go deeper with the readings, the quizzes, the discussions, or you can just sit back and enjoy the lectures. So if you want to take advantage of this offer, go to hillsdale.edu/locked-on right now to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/locked-on to register. hillsdale.edu/locked-on. So wrapping up today's Locked On Falcons here with Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And of course, Jarvis and I will be not only talking today, but also talking on Sunday in the Locked On Falcons postcast, which you, of course, can find live on Locked On Sports Atlanta's YouTube channel immediately after the game, and of course in your Locked On Falcons audio feeds, as well as Locked On Sports Atlanta audio feeds after the game. And of course, Tanitra Batiste hopefully will be back so that me and Jarvis do not go off the rails as we so often do when we're together on these postcasts. But we'll see what's what, and maybe Jarvis won't be talking as much trash about Younghoe Koo this week as he did the last time, but we'll see on that front. So check out Locked On Sports Atlanta, Locked On Falcons postcast on Sunday. But Jarvis, let's talk about the Falcons defense going up against this Broncos offense, which is by no means a juggernaut, but it's kind of the opposite of the Falcons, right? Their strength is the defense, and their offense just has to be good enough to win games, just like the Falcons' strength is the offense, and their defense just kind of has to be good enough to win games. And for the most part, Bo Nix has been good at sort of managing the game, using his legs, not turning the ball over, all that sort of stuff. Their run game is okay, like their passing game is okay. Like there's nothing special about this this Broncos offense. So it's like strength on strength with the Falcons offense and Broncos defense, and then fine. I guess whatever you want to call it. I don't want to call it a weakness, but I'll just say, whatever else it is with the Broncos offense against the Falcons defense. But when we talk about this Falcons defense going up against this Broncos offense, what do you feel like, which area needs to have the better game? Do they need the front to control the line of scrimmage and do all the things that we always are pushing for? Or do they just kind of need the guys on the back end, whether it's AJ Terrell locking up Cortland Sutton, whether it's Justin Simmons making his triumphant return to Mile High and snagging 2 interceptions, or Jesse Bates, doing his Michael Jordan thing? What sort of do you feel like is going to be the sort of difference in this matchup?
Man, as much as I like to default to the defensive line, I have to go with the secondary in this one. And for the things that you just laid out, AJ Terrell, Cortland Sutton is pretty much the only threat to at the wide receiver position. A really good one too. As far as deep ball goes, I feel like Valdez Scantling. Once the Devontae, let's put AJ Terrell on him so he won't make any more big plays. All right, cool. Can we do that from the beginning of the game? So can we pinpoint that leading up to the game? So hey, Jimmy, sir, Mr. Lake, you probably earned some respect from some of your veterans in your locker room if you say, I want AJ on 14 so he won't make no big plays, and then I'll let y'all worry about the rest of the doggone defense. But yeah, man, I think this is a secondary game. This is the game where I want to see MJ. I want to see Michael Jordan, not Matt Judon. Michael Jordan, make I need one of those turnovers, man. And I feel like Justin Simmons is like, right, this would be a perfect storyline, right? Hey, player long time, Bronco comes back, and you can just hear how he just has so much love, and there's no hate for his former team. I was like, man, it got to be some hate in there somewhere, bro. You know, you were there what 8-9 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, you gave your heart and soul to this organization, and you ain't got no hate for them for not signing you back. Man, come on, man, it got to be some hate in there somewhere. So maybe what's gonna happen? He's gonna take it out on the field and not do the whole talking trash leading up to the game and all that stuff. So, but yeah, man, I think this is the perfect scenario for this secondary to say, hey, man, there's a lot of money invested in this secondary. Think about it. There's a lot of bread in that secondary, man. So yeah, I think this is one of those games where I'm charging the secondary for them. I'm charging those guys to like go out there and make a play, be the difference maker in those games, because the more possessions that you give to this offense, eventually defenses break. Even great defenses break, except for the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. But that's a whole nother conversation. But I think that when you talk about what can wear a defense down, and it's having to run out on the field after a turnover. Oh my gosh. The amount of cussing that I heard, from my teammates when I offered you to turn the ball over, dog. Oh my gosh, man. Whew. You would think those guys had said something about their mom or something. What? Woo. But anyway, yeah, man. The secondary. This is a game for the secondary to make sure that they establish themselves and really make a difference in this game, so they can come out with a dub.
Yeah, you bring up AJ Terrell. I think if he is asked to shadow Cortland Sutton in this game, it'll be interesting to see, because Cortland Sutton's a big receiver, and we know AJ has a history of not playing the best against guys that will give him that little shove at the top of the route,
they can't make that.
I've seen Cortland Sutton, run those dig routes and just give that little elbow right there to get that little last bit of separation. So yeah, I think you're right with the secondary. They have a lot to prove in this game. I don't know, Jarvis. It feels like we're just kind of like, yeah, the front is the front. They are what they are. Like at this point in time, like maybe they'll show up, maybe they'll make a play, but like at this point in time, I don't know about you, but I'm just kind of like, they are what they are, and we'll see what they do. But I'm not going to hold my breath that we're going to see big improvements from them.
And that's okay. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's what it is, man. Because we can't be sitting up here watching and looking at all these games and seeing how these guys are playing on a weekly basis and say, yep, Matthew Judon going to have 3 sacks this game. No. Whether that's the scheme fault or he's just not doing or he's falling off right in front of our eyes, man. I'm not that type of guy. I like to follow the money when it comes to expectations. Follow the money. Shoot, money in the secondary. AJ Terrell, go ahead and lock up Sutton. And then shoot, maybe we can get some cover sacks. Maybe the Falcons get some cover sacks. That's what I can hope for, So yeah, man, this defensive line, this front, especially with them being so banged up, Brandon Douglas is what he's gonna get more than likely gonna get his debut this week. Ruka roll down. It's just they got so much going on, man. You asking Grady and Dio to play? Hey, man, let's go back to your normal snappage last year. They got you hurt. So all of those things kind of for me just kind of like add up to, let's look what the strengths are. Like, let's focus on the strengths, and the strengths of this defense is that secondary. So yeah, man, like it's on them to go out there and make plays.
Yeah. We're about 4 weeks removed from, for me being like, oh, Matthew Judon should have a big game this week. And it's like, it didn't happen. So it's like, it's you get about like 3 strikes and you're out. We're like, oh, this is the breakout game for Matthew Judon. And it's like, didn't happen. So maybe it still happens. And we have that conversation at some point, but like, up to this point, it's just kind of like, y'all do, front do whatever y'all do. Whatever it is that y'all do here, and then the back end will, do most of the heavy lifting and make the plays that change the outcome of the games. But we'll see on that front. Any parting words, Jarvis, before we duck out of here?
Yeah, man. Does Younghoe Koo save his job this week? No. Let me rephrase. Let me retract my statement. So I thought Raheem Morris had a very interesting comment, about Younghoe Koo. This man said, I'm riding Younghoe Koo until the wheels fall off. That man got me a job. Does that mean, people talking about policy and immunity and all that stuff, man? Since when kickers get granted immunity, Mr. Freeman? Like, can you help me out with that one?
I'll say this, Jarvis, because it feels like you're trying to rile me up. But Younghoe Koo's been one of the 5 best kickers in the NFL for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's had one bad game. I know people that will disagree with me on that. It's been 4 bad games or whatever. It's like, or whatever.
Last 6 games been 53%.
Yeah. And I will just say, like, Younghoe Koo's 30 years old. We've seen kickers play at a high level well into their 40s.
Yeah.
So we have a young player that's going through a slump relative to his position. And I don't think there should be any reason to panic. Again, as I told you on last week's postcast, the math ain't mathing, right? In terms of how many games Younghoe Koo has won versus how many games he's lost for this football team. So as I said, I feel like yes. So to answer your question, Jarvis, yes, I think Younghoe Koo.
Good with Rob putting a stamp. Like, hey man, he ain't going nowhere, Terry. Good with that.
So I feel like he deserves the immunity. I wouldn't say all kickers deserve that immunity, but I think his body of work says that he deserves special treatment at this point in time.
Okay, man. All right, man. So you loyal. I mean, I'm loyal too. I'm loyal. You know what I'm saying? But got to make sure that we are everybody's being treated like a football player.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
All right. There's a Jesse Bates joke in terms of loyalty in here, because my man loves to cheat, but I'll let that slide on this front. So that's where we'll end it in terms of loyalty and to Younghoe Koo. Jarvis out here being Jesse Bates when it comes to Younghoe Koo. So we'll see what's what on Sunday, guys, in the Locked On Falcons, Locked On Sports Atlanta postcast with myself, Jarvis Davis, Tanisha Batiste. Check it out. Continue to make Locked On Falcons your first listen. Check out Locked On NFL for your second listen to get the lowdown on the other 30 NFL teams heading into this matchup. So, and check out Locked On Broncos as well. So that's going to do it for us, guys, here on today's Locked On Falcons. Appreciate it. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, gosh.